Hello everybody, this is Work Poppy. Just gonna do a shorter, more casual video talking over some things. We ran an event a couple weeks back, a Value Vintage Creator Clash. You may have already seen if you watch Jesse or Servo's channels. They've also posted their point of views, and I'll link those in the description. I'm way behind, and my gameplay wasn't particularly interesting. Truthfully, all my matches were really long and grindy and interactive, almost went to time. So I'm going to spare you all of that, but I was the one who put this event together, so I did want to talk about it really quick, do a little showcase of my deck and the decks that performed well. Obviously, those are separate categories. And just to let you all know, little announcement, that next one will be in 2 weeks on June 8th. That'll be live streamed on the VVMTG channel, and then I'll be doing a video on it, and I'm sure Servo will as well. But everyone, just keep your eyes out for that. So for the next one, we're doing Ravnica Block Constructed. But for this, it was a set roulette where just each of us submitted a set. So we had a card pool, everyone selected a set, and we decided to use Commander Legends as our base, kind of core set because it had a little mana fixing available and some just, staple pieces interaction. And the set I submitted was Time Spiral Remastered because it had a huge card pool, a lot of which was pretty easy to build around or some pretty interesting build arounds. And we ended up using a lot of the newer sets as well. We had like OTJ, we had Secrets of Strixhaven. And what I ended up building was I wanted to build around these two cards that I just mentioned, Magda and Hardened Academic. I've been having a lot of ideas kicking around with Hardened Academic, especially with Gao and Value Vintage. I think it's very close. Some of the brews I've tried have not really worked though, but this was available here, and I think it does have a lot of potential, so I wanted to try building around it. Interesting thing how it works with Magda is your cards that are like, unlicensed hearths are going to just be less dead. They have a little bit more that they work with because you can be triggering your opponent's graveyard or your own. Duelist of the Mind is also procs off the same things that Magda does off committing crimes. Going to loot, let you see an extra card. And I've also just been really impressed with this card in other shells. I think it is one of the best tempo threats available. So this ended up just being sort of a Jeskai tempo, played Dread Horde, that triggers Hardened Academic, and just is really good with any 1-mana interactive piece or cantrip. Grim Lavamancer, then we had some card selection, some removal, and card draw. Dramatic Critique has spiked in price a little bit. It was lower at the time, but we need a few cards in the graveyard and some card selection, and even if you do X is 0, this still is committing a crime, so it was like a perfect fit. And the mana wasn't bad. We had all of our fast lands available, and your reveal lands. Ended up doing Ash Barrens, again for the same reason, just that we want a few cards to hit the yard. I don't always need to have a turn 1 play in this deck. Sometimes it'll be holding up interaction or cantrip, or if I need to Ash Barrens to fix my mana and fill up my yard a little bit, I can do that. So the list played okay. It was definitely very live in every match. I ended up going 1 and 2. I beat Jesse's Ninja's lists, and then I lost to Servo Token on Nickfit, and I lost to Plasma on Creativity, which we'll look at. But first we're going to look at our winning list, our 3-0 list, which is by the buddy Duncan, who was playing Blue Tron. The entire Tron mana base was available, as well as Expedition map. We looked at both Blue and Green Tron pretty early on into the brewing process. This was also right around when Stock Up had been reprinted. It was starting to drop in price, which this is perfect kind of shell for that. So you see a lot of what you would see in the blue Tron Modern list. You had Remand, you have Condescend, Repeal as sinks for all your mana, O-Stone as your interaction, Board Wipe, Mer Battlesphere as top end is hilarious, and Karn, which we don't see a lot of in VV, but 316 is definitely pricey, but all these decks, their budgets were pretty cheap, and you were able to invest in, big bombs like this or expensive mana. And Jadzi was very impressive out of this list. I've been looking at this card. It's very similar to like 3-mana Kiora, but specifically in like a big mana Tron or Post Shell, I do think the upside's a little bit higher. And all in all, I mean, this list was great. I didn't face it in the tournament, but we did play some practice sets, and it looked really strong. And our other 2-1, who I did get to play against, was Plasma, who was doing Indomitable Creativity, X's 2 into Calamity, and Scourge of Valkus, which is a hilarious pile. I was also looking for creativity piles. One we looked at was like Labman Leveler was available in the pool. But this is definitely funnier. So you get to saddle your Calamity with your Scourge of Valkus. make two copies of it in combat, which are going to almost emulate the multiple Pyroglyph ETBs that you see from the normal Value Vintage creativity pile. And then beyond that, it's just a control deck. It has a few ways to produce your tokens. We did have Deduce available, Manhole Missile as a way to tuck a creature if you drew it. I think every game I played against Plasma, I did get lucky and Thought Scour away one half of the piece, or one half of the creativity combo. But he is still able to win off just like, hard casting these threats. They're still huge. Or new card Great Hall of the Biblioplex has continued to far surpass my expectations. I learned playing against Plasma on this deck that if you activate it once, it stays a creature forever. Stonewalls a ton of attackers and does put pretty decent pressure on. At one point, he had an entire playset of Biblioplexes in play and activated because we just kept trading back and forth one for one. Neither one of us could quite turn the corner, and of course he did end up getting there, but it was a very close set, and this deck was really sweet. Our next 2-in-1 was Vacated Drake or Riley, who played a blue-white blink pile. Again, yeah, you can see the core of this deck was so cheap. He's playing 3 Aether Vials, which they're down in price now, but they were higher at the time. And the other main build around here was Ennis, which is a really interesting card from Secrets of Strixhaven. I still have not gotten to brew around with it much, but it is sort of like a Charming Prince that potentially could be a lot better because it can just continue to scale up repeatedly if you have a few other synergies. And then we have a few good ETBs. We got Resto as another way to blink. You got Palace Jailer, Werfox Bodyguard is like the Fiend Hunter effect, your Flicker Wisp, Blade Splicer, Spirited Companion, and Thraben Inspector, just for some card advantage. And yeah, it did end up going for the Tidehauler Sculler, splashing black. And there wasn't a lot of black in here. We do have some Fatal Pushes in the sideboard. Swords was also available in the pool, but opted not to spend the budget on Swords because it had access to things like Palace Jailer and Bodyguard. And you do see some Containment Priests here in the sideboard. Obviously, it's a Nombo with Aether Vial and Ennis, but if you really need stronger removal, Flicker Wisping your opponent's creatures with a Containment Wisp in play is just an exile. And if any other decks are trying to shoot creatures out into play, like Creativity or whatever, this upside may just be higher, frankly. And then our last 2-in-1 deck was by Doot, who was playing Underworld Breach. Now, this is back up in price a little bit, but it was lower at the time. I think there was at one point during the deck building process, Breach was as low as about 530. I did also build a Breach pile with Expedition Tidecaller and free spells. I think the only free spells available in the pool were Frantic Search and Pact of the Titan. But that would have technically won. We did have Grape Shot available as an outlet. He did end up opting for a similar thing, just trying to cast a lot of Frantic Searches, just starting out with enough cards in the graveyard to sort of go off going card neutral, or -1 card per cast of Frantic Search. And it is able to win without Breach pretty easily. We've got Hearth Elemental and Bedlam Reveler, and then in the sideboard also Young Pyromancer, which was something I was eyeing as a potential, backup plan or juke. And then after that, it's just a ton of tempo and card selection, a little bit of cheap interaction to be able to, get these creatures out really quickly or to fill up your bin to execute the Underworld Breach combo. So obviously, Breach is really expensive. This was able to work really well here because the format was lower powered in general. I would love to see if it really could stay between $5 and $6 and hover there for long enough. I wouldn't be surprised if we could make Breach work in full power Value Vintage. So, with all that in mind, just want to let everybody know, tune in 2 weeks' time for our second Creator Clash, going to be Ravnica Block Constructed. Thank you all for watching, and I do just want to say, thank you to everybody who's been supporting. The channel's doing all right. I know Value Vintage is a pretty small niche, but if you're liking what you're seeing, just please, like, comment. If you have any requests on other types of content or other formats you might like to see, please just let me know. You can always leave a comment. You can message me on Discord if you want to work on decks or anything like that. Yeah, thank you all so much for tuning in. See you in the next one.